Uganda has received the Africa Free Trade Area initiative with a lot of optimism. They've embraced it. And the focus here is that the country will derive more dividend out of this initiative. How this is going to happen, we pick the mind of an expert, a technocrat in this space, to tell us where Uganda stands to benefit in this initiative.
All right, Doctor, it's nice to have you on the show, Man and Markets. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Now, the Africa Free Trade Area. What's your quick thoughts about this initiative?
My take on the Continental Free Trade Area engagements that we are in right now is that it's one of the golden opportunities for us to reach our highest levels of prosperity through trade, through labor, and through other services by causing more interaction within the African continent or among the African continents compared to our interaction with perhaps the other parts of the world. Right now, we think this will help us resolve one big problem of many blocks on the African continent, because you cannot belong to two customs unions, because there you charge what we call a single common external tariff schedule for countries outside the bloc. So to resolve this issue, we need a continental free trade area which will resolve this. That's number. Number two, it will help us to deal with the trade facilitation issues, to enable movement of goods and services across the continent. You need roads done, you need the borders done so that you lessen the number of days of crossing those borders, to be able to find exiting opportunities in other countries. Besides, when you look at our trade with the rest of the world right now, we are gravitating towards regional blocks, selling more to those ones than to our former colonial masters, the European Union. More trade now with COMESA, more trade now with East Africa, to the extent that Uganda had a positive trade balance with the ESC.
Now, in a country like Uganda, we are selling more in the East African community. But however, there is still a challenge of one bloc selling to another. For example, the East African community selling to SADC. One would say, aren't we overreaching going to the continental trade bloc before refining and smoothening the inter-bloc trade and relations?
The proponents of such an argument have a point, but they miss out some information. They're looking at commodities, goods and services crossing borders. But regional integration is beyond just goods. It's more. There's movement of labor. Right now we are going to the Arab world to work. We can still go within the African. We have a lot of expertise at the services level, medicine, law, that can still move within the continent. Then you don't necessarily need to trade with all the regional blocks. If we have a continental framework under which there is increased trade among the blocks, that's already a big achievement. So, and I want us to understand one thing, that when you do regional integration, there are also political connotations. In Africa, we have very many states that are not viable in a sense. I don't want to quote one or two, but when you're working as a bloc, you are stronger in negotiations. Like at WTO, if you negotiate as African Union, it's different than when you negotiate as East Africa. It's even more different if you negotiate as Uganda. We need a strong one voice at that level. So it's beyond movement of goods. It has a strong political connotation to it. That's why we must go in for it.
Doctor, do you feel we have good stuff to put on table that we're going with into this particular space as a country?
Yeah, I think we have that challenge. Do we have goods to sell in the market? We are creating a market. But do we have goods to sell in those markets? That remains the challenge. We have what we call supply side constraints to doubling, increasing our productivity. And that's why now our technocrats and our politicians have to think through to increase production. Because if you have a market and you are selling nothing, it doesn't make sense. We need now to address the issue of productivity, production, to either double, triple, or save. I just want to give you an example. Uganda has risen from nowhere to be one of the biggest regional exporters of milk. So once we have these frameworks and we put the right production elements in place, we will be able to sell. So yes, I agree with you. We still have to work on that.
How should these other member states treat others that have not expressed the same optimism in embracing this initiative? The case in point is Tanzania, and I would imagine we need everyone on board. Yeah,
I tell you, I wrote an article of my optimism of what is going to happen around this thing when it started. I think it was in the Monitor. This is it. There will always be those people who stand by the side banks and not drop into the water to swim. That is always there. Our duty is to persuade them, to encourage them to come along and allay their fear and address those fears. Sometimes whoever holds back has a point, so you don't just rubbish what they are saying. And I've gone on record that I supported Tanzania when it raised some observations at one point, because they had issues. When we are integrating, no issue is a small matter, because it can lead to the breaking of the whole region. So you need to address and allay fears and put what you call mitigation mechanism. Just as an example, some countries will lose revenue. How do you address that? They may fear because they go to revenue. In SADC, South Africa has actually been collecting revenue and subsidizing countries that are losing revenue. So you find means and ways to deal with a problem rather than castigating and saying these ones are not. It's not the best thing to do that, because you need the consensus of everybody. These are sovereign states.
What would be your last word?
I think we have to be optimistic, go and sign these agreements, and come back and work. And everybody has their part to play. The state has the work to mobilize everybody. The private sector, the producers need to produce, and then the buyers will buy. So we'll have everybody at the end of the day happy.
All right, Doctor, it was nice having you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Welcome.